They look like golden plates or discs of light, just sort of floating there. What do they mean, and where did this tradition even come from? Well, you're not alone in asking that, and the story behind these celestial crowns is absolutely fascinating. These circles are called halos, or sometimes a nimbus, glory, or aureole, and they are a universal symbol of divinity, holiness, and spiritual power. When you see a figure with a halo in a work of art, it's the artist's way of telling you, hey, pay attention, this person is special, they're sacred, enlightened, or have a direct connection to the divine. It's like a spiritual spotlight, instantly setting them apart from the ordinary mortals in the scene. But here's something that might surprise you. This symbol isn't exclusively Christian. Long before it appeared in paintings of Jesus and the saints, the halo was used in the art of many ancient civilizations. Think about the ancient Egyptians. They depicted their sun god, Ra, with a solar disk above his head. This was a clear and powerful symbol. Ra was the source of light and life, just like the sun itself. This idea of associating light with divinity was a common thread in many early cultures. The ancient Greeks and Romans also used a similar motif. You can find images of their gods and goddesses, like Helios, the sun god, or Apollo, the god of light and knowledge, depicted with radiant crowns or beams of light emanating from their heads. It was a visual shorthand for their divine nature and immense power. Even influential rulers, like Roman emperors, were sometimes depicted with these radiant crowns to elevate their status and suggest they were godlike or divinely appointed. So, the concept of a head circle representing power and divinity was already well established in the ancient world. So, how did this pagan symbol make its way into Christian art? It was a gradual process. In the first few centuries of Christianity, artists were actually quite hesitant to depict Jesus and the saints with halos. Early Christian art was more symbolic and less literal. For example, they might use a fish to represent Jesus, but they didn't really focus on depicting him as a divine figure with a glowing halo. The early church wanted to distance itself from the pagan religions that were all around them. The last thing they wanted was for their sacred figures to be confused with Greek or Roman gods. However, as Christianity grew and became the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, things started to change. The church became more confident, and artists began to develop a distinctly Christian visual language. Around the 4th century, they started to adopt and adapt symbols from the old Roman world, including the halo. At first, it was reserved almost exclusively for Jesus Christ to emphasize his divine nature, the light of the world. It was a powerful way to visually communicate a core tenet of the faith. Over the next few centuries, the use of the halo expanded. It was given to the Virgin Mary, to angels, and then to the apostles and martyrs. It became a way to honor those who had lived exceptionally holy lives or had died for their faith. If you see a painting from the Middle Ages, the presence of a halo tells you that the person is a recognized saint within the church. It's like a visual stamp of spiritual approval. The halo became a fundamental part of the iconographic tradition, a set of rules for how to represent sacred figures. Now, let's talk about the design of the halo itself, because it's not always just a simple gold circle. The artists were very intentional with their designs, and the details can tell you a lot. The most common form is the circular golden halo. Gold was used because it doesn't tarnish, symbolizing the eternal and unchanging nature of heaven and the divine. Its shimmer also mimicked the appearance of light, reinforcing the idea of spiritual illumination. It was the perfect material to represent the unearthly glow of holiness. But look closely at paintings of Jesus. You'll often see that his halo is different. It frequently has a cross inscribed within it. This is called a cruciform halo, and it's reserved specifically for him as a member of the Holy Trinity. The 3 visible arms of the cross represent the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's a powerful symbol that immediately identifies him and reminds the viewer of his sacrifice and resurrection. So, even in a crowded painting, you can always spot Jesus by his unique halo. The shape of the halo could also vary. Sometimes, you might see a square halo. This was a fascinating convention used in Italy around the 6th to 9th centuries. A square halo meant that the person depicted was still alive when the artwork was created. The square, a shape associated with the earth and the material world, was used to distinguish a living, holy person, like a pope or a donor of the church, from the saints in heaven, who received the perfect celestial circle. It was a way of saying, this person is holy, but they're not in heaven just yet. And what about God the Father? How was he depicted? For a long time, artists were reluctant to depict God the Father in human form at all. He was often represented by a hand reaching down from the clouds, known as the hand of God. But by the time of the Renaissance, artists became bolder. When they did depict him, they sometimes gave him a triangular halo. The triangle, with its 3 equal sides, was a perfect symbol for the Holy Trinity, 3 persons in one God. As art evolved, so did the halo. During the Renaissance, artists became obsessed with realism, perspective, and making their paintings look like a window into the real world. A solid gold plate floating behind someone's head started to look a bit awkward and unnatural. It flattened the space and broke the illusion of depth. So artists like Giotto and Fra Angelico started to experiment. They began to paint the halo as if it were a 3-dimensional object, a golden disc seen in perspective. It would appear as an ellipse, tilted according to the position of the saint's head. Later, Renaissance masters, like Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael, took it even further. They moved away from the solid physical halo altogether. They preferred a more subtle and naturalistic approach. Instead of a golden plate, they would paint a faint, delicate shimmer of light, a soft glow that seemed to emanate directly from the saint's head. This created a much more realistic and, some might say, more spiritual effect. The holiness was now an inner light shining outwards, not an external accessory. By the Baroque period, the solid halo had almost entirely disappeared from mainstream Western art. Artists like Caravaggio mastered the use of dramatic light and shadow, and they used this technique called chiaroscuro to create a sense of the divine. A powerful beam of light falling on a figure could suggest a moment of divine revelation or grace, replacing the need for a literal halo. The symbol had become integrated into the very lighting of the painting itself. So, from a pagan sun disk to a golden plate, and finally to a subtle glow of light, the halo has had an incredible journey through art history. It's a perfect example of how symbols can be adopted, transformed, and reinterpreted over time. It's not just a pretty decoration. It's a complex piece of visual language, packed with centuries of theological and artistic meaning. The next time you're in a gallery or looking through an art history book, pay close attention to those circles of light. Notice who has one and who doesn't. Look at its shape, its color, and its style. Is it a solid gold disc, a 3-dimensional ellipse, or a faint, ethereal glow? Now you know that these details aren't random. They are clues left by the artist, telling you about the person's status, the beliefs of the time, and the artistic style of the era. You're no longer just looking at a painting, you're reading it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the story of the halo. I hope you found it as illuminating as I do. If you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more secrets hidden in art, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if there are any other art symbols you've always been curious about. Remy signing off as always. Stay safe and stay curious. See you soon.